I was a painter at a time when painting was considered dead, so I was already out of the running. I was trained as an abstract painter because my teachers thought if you were going to be a painter, at least be an abstract painter. It's more modern than a figurative painter. So after I graduated, I had to ultimately educate myself as to what my needs were. And I realized very early I wasn't a good abstract painter, and began to shift into imagery and ultimately into narration. Cubism came to New York. Cubism, Dada, and Constructivism came to New York. Surrealism went to Chicago, and Matisse went to the West Coast. And in terms of like historical influences, and in the West Coast experience divided between San Francisco and LA, LA picked up on the light as part of the sensuality and beauty of light as a part of the Matisse experience. And in San Francisco, they picked up on the painting, the expressive nature of painting. The Bay Area artists that I became familiar with, they were kind of ignored when I was at school because they were considered reactionary. But you know, their work persisted in my mind for a long time, and I looked a lot at Diebenkorn and at David Parks especially, and Bischoff were influential. It turned out I couldn't really paint like them. I mean, they kind of covered that relationship between the expressive gesture and the expressive color and the imagistic nature of it, but they were certainly moving that tradition of figuration forward. So. Yeah, science and art are two very different cultures, and it's ironic that they're different, because at one point early on, when science was easier to understand, more generally speaking, art and science were wedded. But it began to make a shift, especially when it became nuclear and subatomic and stuff like that, moving into that realm of the unseen. Science and art began to really separate. The bottom line is, even though our investigations are different, results are different, etc., that the creative process is operative in both places, and in ways that are very interesting in how they parallel and how they intersect. And that's where the real conversation needs to take place. So. I make paintings, which is a very old technology. A very old and almost primitive technology. And in order to make my paintings, I use photography, which is a new technology, and I also use Photoshop, which is an even newer use of photography in terms of reconstructing, reconfiguring photographs. And Photoshop forms the basis for the paintings that I make. I make my collages in my computer and stuff. So it's kind of funny. It's like you start out with a very high-end technology, working backwards to create a more primitive, result.